China has told Britain to give up its colonial fantasies and immediately correct its mistakes to avoid further damaging relations. Beijing has warned it will make a forceful counterattack if London doesn't stop interfering in Hong Kong's affairs. The UK has already announced it's suspending an extradition treaty with Hong Kong, and London has extended a Chinese arms embargo.
Now let's take a closer look now at what's evolving between China and Britain. James Crabtree, Associate Professor of Practice at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, joins us now. James, Mike Pompeo has arrived in London amid a standoff with China. Are the two allies strategizing against Beijing?
Yes, absolutely they are. There's been a remarkable change in the UK's position on China over the last few weeks, driven partly by American pressure and partly by a backbench rebellion in the House of Commons. But it's meant that Britain has moved to a much more pro-American, anti-Chinese position. And so Pompeo has come to cement this, particularly in the aftermath of the UK's decision to remove Huawei from its 5G networks.
All right, so saying that, we know that yesterday UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson stressed that he is not somebody who is automatically anti-China. But let's get this. The centerpiece of US geopolitics is to be anti-China. So will Washington be asking Britain to take a side, basically?
Yes, absolutely. The US has been asking Britain to take a side for the last couple of years. And Britain has been, in a sense, trying to have it both ways. Boris Johnson does, I think, instinctively want to have a middle path. When he was mayor of London, and he's quite a liberal, free trade kind of prime minister, he believes in this idea of global Britain, but the global Britain idea has ran smack bang into the reality of great power competition. And in the end, the UK has decided that it has to throw its lot in with the US. They made on the Huawei decision various technical arguments as to why they had to make this decision, but these were really a smokescreen for the fact that the UK decided, A, it had to go with the Americans, and B, if it didn't, its backbenchers, Boris Johnson's backbenchers, were going to force him to do this because there's a rising tide of anti-Chinese feeling on the right of the British Conservative Party.
So does Mr. Johnson really share the Trump administration's characterization of China and President Xi Jinping?
Well, I don't think they start from the same place. As I say, I think Boris Johnson, in his water, is a reasonably free trade kind of politician, and he doesn't particularly want conflict with China. But in the end, he has to choose. He has to choose in this era. And so he has decided that he needs to keep close to the US. After the Brexit deal happens, the UK wants a free trade deal with the US. And as I say, in the aftermath of COVID-19, there has been quite a shift, not just in the UK, but across Europe, on the question of how to react against China. There's been a real rise in questioning of China's role in the world. And so I think Boris Johnson, he is not a terribly principled leader, and he saw the way that public opinion was moving, and he saw the reality of the situation with the US, and he decided he had to jump that way.
You mentioned that this, in the end, he had to choose. There is a rise, there is a shift. The UK has rapidly edged away from its new golden era of relations with China. So what would you say is this turning point?
I think a range of factors have played into this. I mean, a big part of it has been China's own behavior in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, where there has been this array of different movements on Taiwan, in the South China Sea, against India in the Himalayas, in various different ways where China has become more assertive. I think what's happened in Hong Kong has been very significant for the UK, given the UK's historical ties. But as I say, the twin factors I mentioned before, on the one hand, continued pressure from the US, including some quite uncomfortable phone calls between Boris Johnson and President Trump, and then this domestic factor of a rising questioning of China on the British right amongst the Conservative Party. Now that it's got its Brexit referendum, it now sees a kind of moral clarity in being skeptical about China. And so all of these factors have played a part in shifting Britain's position.
Well, James, could you just elaborate more on sort of the domestic politics on the UK and how big a role that plays when it comes to the US-UK partnership?
I think it plays quite a big role. I mean, not necessarily with the US. The Conservative Party in the UK is naturally Atlanticist. Really, the issue is its view on China. So Boris Johnson has a reasonably sizable majority in the House of Commons, but he was facing defeat over Huawei and other measures to do with China. He had lost 50 or 60 of his backbench MPs. And so normally Boris Johnson is quite good at being ahead of the opinion of his MPs or the public. But on this occasion, he found himself behind it and he needed to scramble to get back to a position where he could command a majority. Now, many people would say the position he's got to is perhaps the right position to be in, that the UK is naturally an ally of the US, and the position the UK had chalked out before, this more mercantilist idea of the golden era with China, was the wrong place to be. Nonetheless, I think it's clear that this was not done entirely out of principle. These were the realities that Boris Johnson faced, both in his own domestic support and with the US.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us this evening. Speaking to James Crabtree, the Associate Professor of Practice at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy.